Hi, this is Mark of Crocus, and you're listening to Icon Fetch. Rock on.
Welcome to Icon Fetch, the web's premier music interview show. Now, here's your host, Tony Peters.
Welcome to Icon Fetch. I am Tony Peters. Now, sometimes bands get unfairly lumped into whatever scene is happening at the time, and I think you could say that for Enuff Z'Nuff. These guys arrived right at the height of the hair metal scene, but I think you could say they had a lot more in common with bands like Cheap Trick than any of the contemporaries. Now, the band continues releasing great albums full of melodic hooks, and their latest release goes back a ways, though, back to the early days of the band. Clown's Lounge is a collection of songs that remained unfinished, but back to the early days of the band. Talk about it, we welcome from the band, Chip Z'Nuff. Chip, how are you, man?
Very good, Tony. Thanks for taking time out to talk to me.
Absolutely. Now, these tracks go back, I guess you would say, a little ways. Are these things you had even kind of forgot about? Where's the origin of these?
I don't forget about any of the songs that Donnie and I have created, but some of them slipped through the cracks because at one time, especially in the early part of our career, we were very profound. We were coming up with a lot of material. And maybe that's the wrong word, but maybe prolific.
Prolific, there we go. That's better. You can be profound, too. That's all right.
And, but I don't want to sound modest. And we just had we had a plethora of material, and some of it slipped through the cracks. But I held on to all the masters, and when this opportunity came where Frontiers called us, interested in a record, I immediately went back to our catalog and looked at all the material I had. I wanted to put something out that was strong, and the best stuff I had was from the early days with the original band, with Donnie, Derek Frigo, late Derek Frigo, and Vicky Fox on drums. All those songs were recorded the right way in a proper studio, a 2-inch tape. All analog recordings, and the band basically in one room together. That's the best way to make a record. Forget about passing tapes around and sending files to each other, file sharing. It's about making a real rock record, and that's what we did here. We come up with a juggernaut of an album that features the best elements of Enuff Z'Nuff, in your face glitter rock with pop overtones.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, does this actually, what era are we talking here? Are we talking actually before you got signed to Atco, or kind of around that time, or?
It was around that time. Yeah, we were recording in Lake Jude, Wisconsin, and we were speaking in the studio late at night. There was other bands that were in there, and they had budgets. We didn't have a budget at all. But our management company at the time had a plethora of money. They owned the studio, and they let us sneak in there at 2 o'clock in the morning and record our material. And we just recorded every single day, as much as we could, until 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, pack our stuff up and do the same thing over again. Wash, rinse, repeat. And we continued to do that until we had enough material to go shopping and try to get a record deal. And a lot of the songs that we had, we never even passed them out to the label because we kept writing better stuff, we thought. Upon Frontiers calling us on this record deal, I went back to the catalog of stuff that we had, and with a fine-tooth comb, found the best dozen songs I thought we could work with.
It's got to, listening back to this stuff, it's got to put a smile on your face because, this isn't bottom-of-the-barrel stuff at all. This is phenomenal stuff. I'm going back listening through this stuff and thinking, that sounds like a hit. That sounds like a hit. That sounds like a hit. I mean, you guys were, what you're telling me is you guys were so prolific that, you know, what might have been the best stuff for some band, this was the stuff that you kind of cut out because you had better stuff at the time, huh?
Well, we certainly weren't listening to our contemporaries at the time. When that record came out, the first album, it was Whitesnake, Motley Crue, Poison, Guns N' Roses, Kingdom Come. There's a lot of great bands out there putting out really strong material. And we were listening to Squeeze, Mott the Hoople, Beatles, obviously, Queen, David Bowie, Cheap Trick, Jellyfish.
Nice.
A lot of different that was out there. And I think that because of our influences, that's the record that you get, and it's the kind of style of music that we decided to write. Derek came from a metal school, real hard rock, very aggressive. He was in a band called Le Mans. Vicky Fox, unknown drummer, but he had a band called Lickety Split, and they were a pop rock, glam rock band. And then Donnie and I, who were contributing songwriters in Enuff Z'Nuff from the beginning all the way till now. And we were able to have a team that let us focus on writing the songs, and they gave us great performances, and they were a big part of our sound. And I think it's a collective effort right there. There's no doubt about that. And if it wasn't for those guys, we wouldn't have probably been known. We took those, we had early stuff, the New Thing and Fly Michelle, and those early demos that we did. We couldn't get arrested, bro. We walked naked down the street holding them. And then what happened was we had Alex Kane playing guitar with us at that time. Alex was in a band called Life, Sex, and Death. He was the guitar player in Enuff Z'Nuff. And when he left the band, we had Derek come down and play guitar on 4 of the demos that we sent to everybody that everyone passed on. And a week later, we had a bidding war. There was a dozen labels that wanted to sign the band after that. So he was a big part of changing our sound. Otherwise, it would have been just like, what did Derek say? Derek, to quote Derek Frigo, the late, great Derek Frigo, he says, "Without me, you guys are nothing but a Bay City Rollers band."
I don't know about that, but
I thought it was kind of a funny.
Sure.
But the fact of the matter was, he came in. He a big part of our sound those early days. Those big guitars. Wonderful guitar player. I mean, no one plays like him. He's just a fantastic musician. And I think he had a big part of carving our sound out. And, of course, the guys let us write the songs. Record company never put handcuffs on the band. And because of that, we were able to really write songs that we thought would resonate with the public. And we had our own sound, and we wouldn't sound like anybody else, and we certainly didn't want to as well. Maybe our look might have been fell in the same category as some of those bands because we were colorful and flamboyant. But then again, so was Metallica and Pantera for that matter. But those bands were smart enough to strip off the makeup and lipstick and cut their hair and wear boots and change their clothing and be able to not be a band that people would listen with their eyes instead of their ears. We, on the other hand, we kept our image up. MTV was responsible, obviously, for breaking Enuff Z'Nuff. And because of how flamboyant we were able to get some airplay, and I think that helped the band a lot. Where there's no bands out there now where every single day you're on TV. MTV and VH1 were responsible for a lot of these bands' careers, and boy, I miss those stations now because it's really tough to get some airplay, and so it's really difficult for bands to be to get a chance to be recognized. Now the only way to really do it is to go out there and tour.
Right, absolutely. There's not a lot of rock radio stations left, which is really kind of sad, you know? It's like you got a whole generation of kids that are growing up on American Idol instead of Kiss, you know what I mean? It's like
and the rock radio stations that are out there right now, there's a few, listen, with Sirius XM, those guys are terrific because you got Ozzy's Boneyard, you got Hair Nation.
Right, yeah.
And some good stations that play the bands every single day. But for contemporary or terrestrial radio, it's a small playlist, and they play their 20 bands over and over again, and And if you haven't sold 10 million records, you're in big trouble.
Yeah. Now tell me this, these tapes, we're talking about 25, maybe even older than that. What kind of condition were they in? Did you have to do any tweaking or anything like that?
Well, we had to bake some of the 2-inch tapes because they were so old.
Wow.
And you basically go and you bake the tape.
Man, that would make me nervous as all get up, man. I'm sorry. I'm just
Yeah. You take the 2-inch tape, you put it in like a little oven, you bake it for, I don't know, half an hour, however long it takes. And then you have to put it on the reel, you have to transfer it immediately. And then you can get all the information off of it. Then along with DAT tapes I had saved all the DAT tapes from all those sessions. The good Lord works in mysterious ways because most bands wouldn't even think about that. But I knew back in the old days, hang on to this stuff. It could be priceless. And I took those DAT tapes, and the only obstacle I had to face there was I couldn't subtract. Those recordings pretty much stayed intact. There was a band in the studio. It was Vicky Fox counting the song up 1, 2, 3, 4, and the band playing live. And then I just went back in the studio and I just did small overdubs all by myself. Maybe a little bass, some little guitars, a couple oohs and ahs. But for the most part, those recordings are very authentic of the time of playing those songs, which is straight live records. That's why the song sounds so strong, because it's the band really playing. There's no Pro Tools stuff. There's no guys hidden backstage. There's nobody, no tapes, no sequencers, no synthesizers. It's just the band playing in the studio live with very minimal overdubs, and that's what makes this record so special.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it's all about, man. A group of guys staring at each other, playing music. None of this, like you say, sending it through email or something like that, man. That ain't rock and roll. I don't know.
No, listen, there was obstacles, just like any band out there. All the bands that went through tough times. Those Rolling Stones record, those guys were doing tons of blow, and they were drinking their ass off. And they were having a great time on those records. All my favorite guys, Aerosmith, Cheap Trick, they've all went through their little times where they need to find inspiration somehow. And Enuff Z'Nuff was no different. On those early recordings, there was a plate of cocaine. There was Jack Daniels all around the studio, and there was Trim hanging out there. But we always stayed focused at the task at hand, which was recording the songs the best we could and giving strong performances. And that was our main focus. And I think we nailed it in this record.
Now tell me, the title of the record, Clown's Lounge, that's kind of a throwback to the early days too, right?
Well, when we got the record deal with Frontiers, which we're very lucky to be in this position because most guys our age don't get record deals. We looked at, Donnie said, give me 10 titles, 10 ideas you got for titles in a record. And that was one of the titles I gave out of the 10 I sent to him because a lot of those songs were created around that time in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. There's a place right outside Lake Geneva called Lake Delavan. And there was a little place out there called Clown's Lounge, which is a strip club. And we would sneak out of the studio whenever we could because, trust me, management had handcuffs on the band because they knew we had a propensity to get in trouble at any single moment.
Right.
And a lot of those songs were created around that time, so Donnie thought that was a good title, and I'm not so sure about that. It's not my favorite title of our records, but we've never been good at writing titles for records. We're good at writing songs, but when it comes to titling the record, look at our stuff, Paraphernalia, Enuff Z'Nuff 7, Enuff Z'Nuff 10, Welcome to Blue Island. Some of the titles are a little questionable. But the music's strong, and I don't think anybody really cares about the title. They just want to hear good songs.
Right. Absolutely. Now, let me ask you about a couple of the tunes on the record. I really love Radio. And you've actually got, the guy is actually giving a shout-out to one of the radio stations right in the middle of the song. You can tell me anything about that one?
Yeah, it was me putting on my radio station DJ cap on that song.
Right.
It's a straight-ahead rock song, showing the best elements of Enuff Z'Nuff. It's kind of got a little Cheap Trick of a vibe to it, maybe. A little bit of squeeze to it. I think it's just a bashed out. It was a pop song that we bashed out and played as hard as we could. Very aggressive. And it's a nice little story. And most of the songs on that record, on this new record, are about everyday experiences that we went through. And quite possibly you have as well.
Right. Nice. Now, what about you've got a couple of guests on the record with Devil of Shakespeare. That's not from like the early days. That comes from a little bit later, right?
Yeah, in 2004, I had a friend of mine, he used to play in a band called Demal's. His name is Billy Dior. He was writing a book called The Devil of Shakespeare, and he says, hey, can you do me a favor? I want to write a song. I need you to help me write this song, and it's going to be, I'm going to give you a title. It's called Devil of Shakespeare, and I just want you to put it together for me. I'm going to put it in my book. And he wanted to be the first author to put a book out with a song in the book, a CD inside the booklet. I thought it was a great idea. I wrote the song in like 10 minutes, right in front of him in the studio. He loved it. And then after we played it, we recorded it without the vocals. We had the melody line there and the lyrics and everything ready to go. And our first thought was, well, we'll get Robin Zander from Cheap Trick to come down. So I went down to Rockford, Illinois with Billy, met with Cheap Trick. They were playing the 25th anniversary. And we handed Robin Zander $3,000 and said, here, we want you to sing on the track. All you got to do is come in there and sing the verses, and here's half the money. We'll give you the other half when you finish it. And Robin was into doing it. He says, yeah, great. And out of the corner of our eye, his manager I guess he's seen with the transaction, and the manager was a real prick. He came over and said, hey, what are you guys doing? We said, we're going to give Robin a little dough. We want him to sing on this song for us. And he goes, Robin, give me the money. And he took the money and handed it back to us and says, we got to hear the song first before Robin sings on it. So we waited about a week, and then eventually management came back and says, yeah, Robin doesn't have time to do the song. So we were very upset about that because we really wanted Robin Zander's voice on there because he's one of the greatest singers in rock, in our opinion. So the next guy that came into mind was Jani Lane from Warrant. Jani's always been a friend of ours from the early days. Great singer-songwriter. Jani says, I'll check it out. He liked the track. He flew to Chicago on a red eye. We started recording about midnight at a place called Star Tracks in Crestwood, Illinois. And Jani, first thing he said to me when he came in the studio was, Chip, I don't want to sing it like me. I want to take a different approach like David Bowie. He said, are you cool with that? And I was producing the record. I said, of course. Because the producer's job is to bring a best performance out in the individual. I don't want to handcuff him. We're talking about a guy who sold 15, 20 million records. Last thing I want to do is make him feel uncomfortable in the studio. So I said, go ahead, do what you want to do, buddy. And in a couple of takes, he was finished. He nailed it. And then the record sat for a little while, and then Jani passed away. But it was one of the last recordings he did outside of his band Warrant. And I thought it would only be special to have him on the track, not only for his family, but for his fans, too, to hear Jani Lane playing with all those great guys. On that record, it's Jani Lane along with J.Y. from Styx and Ron Flynn from 2020, Billy from Demal's, and myself. There's a nice little all-star band right there. It's not necessarily an Enuff Z'Nuff song, but it sounds like it could be Enuff Z'Nuff, and it's a couple of the members of Enuff Z'Nuff on the track. And I talked to Donnie about that, and he was cool about it too because he loved Jani Lane, and I think it's a nice addition. The record company's super happy about it because it helps elevate the perception of the band. You got guys like Styx and Warrant on the record, who both bands collectively have sold over 50 million albums. It can't hurt.
No, not at all. Not at all. And yeah, like you said, it's one of the last things that Jani recorded. So that's fantastic. So,
I'm very pleased to have it on the record, and I hope his fans out there hear it and are happy as well.
So you've got, in addition to this archival stuff, you're kind of giving a little treat to the fans of maybe what's to come. You got a brand new song. Why don't you tell me about that?
Well, now Enuff Z'Nuff has new members. Obviously, we haven't had the best of luck through our career. Or maybe I haven't had the best of luck. I lost Derek in 2004. Ricky Perrin passed away in 2007. Donnie left the band in 2013 after like the third time he left, and so he left me with at the front of the ship. And I went out. I called Tony Fennell, the former singer of Ultravox, great friend of mine. I've known him since the early days. He used to be with Atlantic Records as well. We've known each other since 1988. And I asked him if he wanted to get on board. He's a great songwriter and a wonderful singer. He said he was interested. He came down to Chicago, and I said we need to record a track for the new Enuff Z'Nuff album, and he co-wrote the song with me. And it's a straight-in-your-face rock and roll song dealing with substance abuse and trim, things that we know about. It's easy to write about stuff that that you live with.
Sure.
It wasn't a Fox show. I wasn't writing fucking Bohemian Rhapsody. I was writing a song about our lives.
Right. So you've actually got a video for it, too, A Dog on a Bone. You've got a video that people can check out.
We did the record. I thought the label would be happy to hear the band. So the record you can hear the record as Enuff Z'Nuff was then and how we are today. And it was a good opening. I think it's a strong opening track. We shot the video with Dave Stecker, who's he's a video director. He's worked with Paul McCartney and Jesse Malin. And he took one day out of his schedule in Brooklyn when we were on tour, this last tour of LA Guns, and shot the video. So we had the first single ready to go, and the rest is history. We'll see what happens with the record. Right now, great reviews. We'll see what happens, what the future holds in store. Let's face it, it's a tough time right now for all bands. We're at a time right now where there's too much product, not enough demand. Everybody's got their own band. They got a recording studio in their house. They all think they can make records. The one advantage that Enuff Z'Nuff has is we have a name. We've sold a lot of records. We haven't stopped playing. And maybe there's somebody out there will hear it and go, I can use this for a movie, a soundtrack, a TV show, a commercial.
Yep. Oh, now you're talking.
There's opportunities out there, and I look at the glass half full. It's a wonderful opportunity for us. Next year, big tour. We're out with Ace Frehley for a couple of months.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I saw on your website, EnuffZ'Nuff.com, that you guys are going to be touring with Ace. That's got to be a thrill.
I go back with Ace a long time. I've known. I remember meeting Ace when he was all jacked up. Back in 1989, we first got a record deal. I was getting out of a cab in New York, and he was getting in a cab. He was being carried by two trim, beautiful models. And I got out of the car, and the girl recognized me. She goes, "Oh, Chip, how are you?" And I said, "Is that Ace Frehley?" She says, "Yeah, can we use your cab?" And she pushed him in the cab, and that was my first meeting with him.
Man.
And then later on, I was co-host of a TV show called Man Cow TV here in Chicago, and Ace came on the show, and we hung out. We played together on the TV show. He never does that with anybody. And he remembered, he might have been jacked up then, but he's not jacked up now. He's straight and focused, and he was kind enough to say, yeah, let's take Enuff Z'Nuff on tour. So another break for us. So you get out there, you put your best foot forward. Don't give up. I tell everybody, all musicians out there, you got a chance out there. Just make good music, try to make a strong record, and the rest will fall into place.
Fantastic. Absolutely. That's the way to do it. All right. Well, Chet, man, it was good talking to you. Great new record, Clown's Lounge. Get to hear some classic Enuff Z'Nuff, and then also a sign of what's to come. New record, hopefully in the new year kind of thing?
I certainly hope so. It's a 2-album deal. Right now, though, I'm not looking ahead of anything except for touring and to support the record. And we have shows all the way through till September of next year. This is the first time we worked this hard in 15 years. was the weekend warrior for Enuff Z'Nuff for the longest time. We play festivals, go out on the weekends and fly out and come back home. We'll be on a tour bus traveling around. If we come through your town, I'd love to see you, say hi, do your station. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us. There's a lot of bands out there. And I wish you and your family and all your listeners a happy holiday season and much success for next year.
Fantastic.
You've been listening to Icon Fetch with Tony Peters. Want more great interviews? Head over to iconfetch.com. There, you'll find every interview we've ever done, plus CD reviews, This Day in Music, and a random album of the day. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. Who is Tony going to interview next? It could be you. Send what you've got to Tony Peters. Icon Fetch, P.O. Box 292134, Dayton, Ohio 45429. Or email Tony at host@iconfetch.com. Until next time, this is Joe Kelly. Have a great day.